Welcome to A Pod Somewhere in Time. I'm your host, John, and I'm here with my co-host, Mattias. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing Iron Maiden's 10th studio album, The X Factor. But before we get into that, let's give you some background info on the record. On the 13th of March, 1993, it was made public that Bruce Dickinson was leaving the band. The announcement was made before the start of the real live tour. Bruce left the band as he thought the band was in a rut and wanted to see who he could be outside of Iron Maiden. In comes Blaze Bayley, who had previously sung with the band Wolfsbane. Besides Blaze, the other three singers to make it to the last round of auditions were Doogie White, who has sung with many bands, including Rainbow, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Michael Schenker. Damian Wilson, then with prog band Threshold, and John West, who would go on to sing with Royal Hunt and Cozy Pal. Writing and rehearsals for this album began in April 1994, and recording began in June 94 and finished in July of 95. This was the longest recording ever for the band up to that point. During the recording, Blaze got seriously hurt in a motorbike accident, and it is also said that technical problems in the studio delayed the process. Finally, the album was released on October 2nd, 1995. Martin Birch officially retires, so producing and mixing is handled by Steve and Nigel Green. Nigel had worked as an assistant to Martin on both Killers and Number of the Beast. He is also famous for engineering and mixing the infamous recording of Def Leppard's Hysteria album that took many years to finish. The cover was designed by Hugh Sim, famous for working on almost all of the Rush album covers. And the tour, dubbed the X Factor, was 128 concerts starting on September 28th, 1995 in Israel, Jerusalem, and ending on September 7th, 1996 in Mexico, Monterrey, making it one of the longer tours of the band. Okay, Matthias, this is an album that gets the fans talking, to say the least.
Yeah,
As I'll mention, for me, this was my years away from metal. I did not get this record when it came out. I was completely out of the Iron Maiden loop. So, Matthias, you were there. You were on ground level. You've got the
yeah.
memories. Tell us what it was like for you when you found out that Bruce was leaving. What it was like when leading up to this record, when you heard Blaze. Did you know who Blaze was? At that time, what were your expectations for the record? How did you feel when you got the record? Has your feelings changed for this record over the time? Give it all to us. Lay it on us.
Yeah. Okay. So it was announced, and I remember I read like a news article in a magazine that Bruce was leaving, and the announcement was, like you said, was made before the start of the second part of the Fear the Dark tour, what was to be called a real live tour. So I saw that gig. I think we discussed that in the last episode in April of '93. And after the tour finished, they started to look for a singer. So I will sort of do a short-ish recap of what was going on when Bruce left and why and how things went and getting Blaze. But before that, I will answer your questions. So, yeah, I was very much indeed there. By this time in '95, when the album came out, I was fully into going to shows, collecting albums. We even made a trip to what was a fan club convention in London at the end of August in '95. And I remember that it was on in the London Astoria, a club in the central of London, and they had this convention. There were like stalls where they were selling off old stock of fan club magazines, and I just bought everything. I just emptied my pockets just to buy as much as I could. And as the evening proceeded, they had a playback of the album. This was on the 29th of August. And apparently the mix was done just a day or two before this event. So we were there, me and my friend Henrik, we were listening along with other members of the fan club who made their way to London. And I must say that the first song is, as we will discuss, and of course, is Sign of the Cross. And that made like an impression on me from the get-go. It was like, okay, this is something different, that they put the last song of the album first on the album. That was how we thought about it. And as the album progressed, it was like, okay, this album is quite morose, I think is the word I would use. So it wasn't at all an instant love affair between me and the album. And they played this album over and over during the night. There was a signing session as well when the band finally showed up. I had a few things signed by the band, of course. Took some photos. But like I said, just like with Fear the Dark, I didn't actually love this album from the get-go. And you asked me if I knew about Blaze, and to be honest, Wolfsbane was like the world's biggest band in the UK, but not anywhere at all that popular outside the UK as they were in the UK. And I mean, they were a popular band being even as an unsigned band, because their rumor as a live act was so widely spread that this was a band to go and see live, Wolfsbane. But I don't think I've actually heard Blaze before. I can't remember getting any Wolfsbane album before as he was announced. I think I heard a song or two maybe that didn't really made me super enthusiastic. But you know, you only know when you get to hear it. So I was a bit cautious, not like super excited about the new singer. And I mean, let's just face it. Bruce to me was and still is a huge part of what is Iron Maiden. Even though I love the Paul Di'Anno albums, I came in when Bruce was the singer. And to me, Bruce is the singer of Iron Maiden and always was. And even in those years when he tried out his solo career in the 90s, you know, I went to shows. I saw Blaze play. I saw 2 gigs in Sweden on the X Factor tour. They played in Gothenburg and Stockholm. And I really enjoyed those 2 gigs. I think that the gigs themselves had a sort of fire to them. There was an urgency, and I think that the band sort of knew that they had to prove themselves. And I think Blaze knew that he had to prove himself. And I've read in magazines like Kerrang about Blaze being this stage phenomena, but I couldn't really see any of that when he was playing with Iron Maiden. I just think he was so focused on getting it right, because many of the songs were hard for him actually to perform live. But still, I hold these 2 shows on the X Factor in Sweden very close to my heart. I think they were good shows. The show in Gothenburg actually it must have been one of the first official recorded gigs with Blaze in the band. And it was later, only a few weeks after the show was broadcasted on national radio. There will be songs cropping up on future releases from now, from this recording in Gothenburg that I went to in 95. But the places were really small. I mean, they played bigger places, like the big arenas, indoor arenas in Sweden. With Blaze coming in, I don't think the promoter's heart were in it. I thought the promoter were actually kind of afraid that it might bomb. So they put Iron Maiden playing those small gigs. The gig in Stockholm, Cirkus, is a venue that holds, I think, roughly about 1,000 perhaps. Perhaps a bit more. And the gig in Gothenburg was, I think the capacity is about 800 or something. It's more like a big club. But the gig in Gothenburg was so small that they couldn't actually fit in all of their stage props. Literally, it was just too small of a place. In a weird way, knowing Steve Harris, I think these kind of circumstances sort of triggers him. And I mean, he's the leader of the band, and I think just that he made the band, or the band thought that we have to work double hard now with Blaze playing under these circumstances. But yeah, should I be going through what was going on? I have written this down,
Yeah.
so I don't meander off too much.
Yeah.
So first, let's sort out what we believe are the facts of Bruce leaving. Okay. Bruce started to work on another solo album in 92. So after recording Fear the Dark, he started to work on his second solo album with Chris Angaridis, who produced Tattoo Millionaire. Chris Angaridis is, of course, famous for working with Judas Priest on the Painkiller album. He did so with the band, what would become known as Skin, and he wrote the songs with the guitar player in that band, and his name is Mike Gray. Bruce had worked with that band, but then they were under the name of Taste. They done a charity single where they covered the song Elected, the Alice Cooper song Elected, and with the comedian Rowan Atkinson, who is more known as Mr. Bean. So he knew the band from that session. He began recording this new album, his second album, in 92 in April. And you can hear a lot of these songs because they were released on B-sides for singles and CD singles and so on, as he later on actually released the album that we know as Balls to Picasso. But he sort of realized and felt that it was a bit safe. It's more like, well, it's a bit more like standard metal, I guess, that first version of Balls to Picasso. So he realized that he wanted to sort of step away from the Maiden formula, and he wanted to try something different. So he went to LA to work with a famous producer called Keith Olson, and he started from scratch. Mike Gray was still with him, the guitar player from Skin. And this must have been, so now they have toured, Fear the Dark tour. So this must be around early December of 92. The material on this second version of Balls to Picasso is very different, I would say. But if you ask me, it's not very good. And I think Bruce himself didn't really feel it as the recording progressed. So he then, so by December, he started to work and record with the Tribe of Gypsies and writing songs with the guitar player of that band, Roger Ramirez, who is more known as Roy Z. Bruce had heard Tribe of Gypsies through Keith Olson's engineer, Shay Baby, who was working with Tribe of Gypsies. Bruce himself says that at this time, at the end of December, he had still not decided to leave Iron Maiden. But somewhere around January, he had a talk with Rod, and by the end of February, everyone in the band knew that Bruce was leaving. But he also agreed to do the tour that they had booked and fulfill the agreements that they had done. And just like you said in the introduction, John, Bruce had talked about, he phrases this a bit differently depending on what source you read or interview, but he says that he started to feel like he was just a part of a machine, like a cog in a machine or something. And he sort of went that, is this all I am? Could I be something else? Is there a different Bruce who could make something else? And as he was making these different balls to Picasso's, he sort of realized that, okay, maybe I want to explore this much more than I can within the realms of Iron Maiden. He also thought that, and he had commented that even though Iron Maiden was a band, and even though Fear the Dark was an album that sort of, where they tried to do different things, they tried different angles, and of course, Janni coming into the band, he brought in different sort of styles that were new to Iron Maiden. But he wanted more. And he also said that, of course, it is Steve's band. It's Steve who, in the end, sort of makes the decisions. They have a discussion, but in the end, it's Steve who says yes or no. And I think that Bruce wasn't. Bruce sort of saw himself as the guy who wanted to muck around with Steve a bit more. And absolutely more than the other guys in the band. They were more pleased or satisfied with their role of being like the guitar player or the drummer. But again, Bruce wanted more. So now Bruce is out of the band. I continue with getting Blaze. First and foremost, they wanted an experienced British singer, but anyone could send in their tape. I remember there were like addresses in Kerrang where you could send your cassette and biography to this very address. And depending on the source, you can read that there were like hundreds. Some sources even claim like 2,000 tapes were sent in. And I don't know how many there actually was. It was their tour manager, Dickie Bell, who was the guy who was in charge of actually going through all these and just sort of making a selection, a rough selection for the band later on, and Rod Smallwood to listen to. But of course, as we have come to know, Steve had his eyes on Blaze from touring. Iron Maiden had toured with Wolfsbane opening as an opening act in 1990. But they did try out a number of singers, like you mentioned the names, but I think from the very, they wanted an experienced singer. They wanted first and foremost a British singer, and of course, Steve knew he wanted Blaze, because Blaze supposedly in Wolfsbane was like a stage phenomena, a real stage force, and Steve wanted that for Iron Maiden. Different interviews, I think there are sources that say that other members of the band were sort of persuaded, like Steve said, that you have to believe me in this. This is the right decision. But at least I know that Nico wanted them to try out a few more singers, and even perhaps listen to the tapes and see if there are any unknown talent that could be given an audition for the band. But Steve had made his mind up, and we ended up with Blaze Bayley singing for Iron Maiden. Have you heard any of these other singers that we mentioned? We had an American John West. We had Doogie White, who sang on Stranger Than Us All. Do you have any sort of idea of
Only
those?
Doogie. Yeah,
Yeah.
Doogie's the only guy that I'm familiar with. And it's pretty easy to imagine. It would be sort of ironic because when I think about Doogie White, I often kind of think about Tim Ripper Owens,
Mm.
because they're both guys that have sung with a ton of bands, and through the years, they're kind of known as these singers that can come in and I think, didn't Ripper sing on an Yngwie record? Did he? I
Yeah, he
can't
did.
remember. Yeah,
Yeah,
did
he
he
did.
sing on a Michael Schenker record?
I
I don't
don't
think he
think
ever
so.
sang
No.
with Michael Schenker. Yeah, but you could picture it, right? And, they're both
Yeah.
like of the same. I'm pretty sure they're roughly around the same age, and so yeah, it's. I mean, I know who Doogie is, so I could easily have pictured him in the band, and that would have been interesting because again,
Mm,
a lot of times when people are thinking about the Blaze years, they're quick to compare it to the Judas Priest years without Rob because those also happened in the 90s.
yeah.
Priest released two albums with Ripper. So the circumstances are kind of similar. So often
Mm,
when people are discussing Blaze, the Ripper Priest era gets brought up in conversation. But
mm. I think that Doogie would have been like a. We don't know, but in my mind, I can easily hear him sing for Iron Maiden, and I think he could handle the material, the Bruce songs as well, much better. Um, the Damien Wilson guy, I listened to a few of his recordings, old and new, and he's a very good singer, a very good singer. But he has that more that sort of, you know, you can easily hear a voice like his on the '70s prog album. You know, strong, competent. You know, dealing with technical stuff. But I couldn't really hear him singing for Iron Maiden at all. And John West, the American, his voice is more, to my ears at least, very AOR-ish, and that would have been like not good at all. I can't imagine
mhm.
a voice like that for Iron Maiden. I would have picked Blaze before him any day of the week. Actually, there was also some talk about like of the more known singers, the Steve Grimmett of Grim Reaper. He has
Mhm.
a great voice. He could have. I mean, I don't know if he actually auditioned. There has been talk about the Club and Hoof singer Russ North, who
Yeah.
has a great voice, but apparently perhaps a bit more awkward as a person. And I mean, we have to take into consideration too that singing for a band, being our maiden or whatever, but being a singer for a band is just a lot more than being the voice. You have to be a person that you sort of can you can that works in a band. You have to be like a sociable nice guy. You will be able to. They wanted someone to come in and really participate in the songwriting as well. And maybe these other guys weren't that confident or had much to show for being a lyricist or a songwriter. So there are a lot of factors to take it into consideration. But Steve wanted Blaze, and yeah,
And he
they
got
got Blaze.
Blaze.
Yeah. So should we have this show and tell
Sure.
section?
Let me
Yes.
give some background on
Yeah.
my experience with this record first, because it's not really that much to be quite honest with you. As I've mentioned in the other episodes, I had my years away from metal, which were roughly 89 to 94. And I had kind of checked out from Maiden with Seventh Son. You can go back and listen to those episodes, go where I go more in depth into that. So I was not aware. I'm pretty sure I was aware that Bruce wasn't in the band anymore. Again, I was, there was no, I didn't have the internet back then. Most people didn't have the internet back then. So it was harder to get information. I remember seeing that concert with the magician, with Bruce and
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
I just remember thinking I was so burnt out on Iron Maiden. It really felt stale to me. I remember watching that concert and thinking the band didn't sound good. Bruce didn't sound good, that it was just time for them to take a break. So I wasn't even aware, Balls to Picasso was one of the albums that got me back into metal. But I remember listening to because I think YouTube probably I don't know. I don't know where I heard some of YouTube wasn't around back then. So I don't know where I heard some of the X Factor, but I just didn't inspire me. Maybe I saw a video or something like that. I wasn't inspired to go and get it, and so I didn't. I've only really started listening to this record when I got on streaming, which was about 12 years ago. I
Mm.
didn't have this on CD. I know I had heard some of these songs here and there, and it just didn't do anything for me. I've always struggled with this record. Uh, it's a difficult listen for me, although I will say that in preparing for this, I've probably listened to this. This is the most I've listened to this album consistently. This album for me
Mm.
was always like I listen to a couple songs and then I go to something else. So the back half of this record I did not know very well at all. Uh, After spending time with it in the days leading up to us recording this episode, I can't say it's massively changed my opinion of the record, but maybe where I would have given this record a 3 or 4 out of 10 before, maybe I give it a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Mm.
Now it does notched up a little bit. There's some things
Yeah.
that I sort of do appreciate on it, but Blaze, I wasn't familiar with Blaze and Wolfsbane. No, actually, that's not true. This is a weird. Again, I did not listen to this record really uh, till I got on streaming, and I started collecting vinyl in like 99, 2000, and I had a Wolfsbane record, and so I thought he sounded pretty good on there. I forget which record it is that I did. This the popular one. It's just got a picture of the band on the front of it. I forget what it was called. But there was just always something about Blaze in Iron Maiden that just a classic case of this just doesn't work. And it's I always say it's not the fault of Blaze. This was a bad management decision. I like to make hockey references because I'm a big hockey fan. Uh, Hockey GMs, when they're putting a team together, coaches will say you have to have chemistry. You can't have everybody can't be a team filled with Wayne Gretzky's will fail because people have to have different roles. And in hockey, there's different roles that players play. There's guys that are on the fourth line that you don't expect them to score, but you expect them to bang bodies and get pucks in deep, like coaches say, and things like that. The guys on the first line are expected to be the flashy, dazzly guys that score for you and all that kind of stuff. So in hockey, if you're taking a guy on the fourth line and expecting him to be a first line player, that's not the player's fault. That's the coach's fault. The coach did not manage the team properly. And coaches get fired quite often in the NHL for not properly managing the roster that they have. So, considering that Iron Maiden could have probably picked thousands of singers, like you said, probably, and they probably could have reached out to any number of singers, to established singers, and gotten them to join the band. It is kind of puzzling. I mean, on the surface, I can see why they might pick Blaze, because Blaze to me is more in line with Paul Di'Anno than he is with Bruce. He's more of a pub in your face kind of singer. He doesn't have a huge amount of range, but he has some aggression to his voice a little bit. So you would think that maybe if the band had gone in that direction with this record, like gone back to more of a new wave of British heavy metal, that sort of 1980, 81 sound, Sanctuary, that kind of vibe that they did with Paul
Mm.
Di'Anno, that maybe it could have worked with Blaze, but unfortunately on this record, it's the stuff is kind of somewhere in between that. Like it's somewhere in between Paul Di'Anno and Bruce Dickinson songs, and in some ways, it's you can see where Iron Maiden is going to go. This album for me foreshadows where they go when Bruce comes back. This more quote progressive, meaning longer songs with the
Mm.
changes, different changes inside them and stuff. There is no "Can I Play with Madness" on this record, but unfortunately, it just at times it just sounds like Blaze is not playing to his strengths. Singers have what I like to call money zones. Uh, for Bruce, it's the air raid siren. It's when he's way up in his range. Hallowed be thy name. That's
Mm.
Bruce's money zone. Paul Diano's money zone is the I remember it as plain as day. Know what happened at it? Spitting the words out really good. Wrathchild, that kind of
Mm.
thing. That's Paul's money zone. I'm not really sure when I listen to this record, it's hard for me to wrap around like it just doesn't sound like Blaze is used to his strengths on this record. It sounds like it's too many of the songs are in an awkward part of his vocal range that he's not able to negotiate properly. Another obstacle for me on this record is unfortunately Blaze at times is just out of tune. He's
Mm.
just out of key with his singing, and it's kind of shocking that that would
And I mean that
happen.
that's not even an opinion. It's like a fact.
Yeah.
If you're singing out of tune or not, it's not
Yeah. In
like
fact, it was
yeah.
so like sometimes I almost it almost makes me feel nauseous. He's so out of tune at times. And I don't say that jokingly. I almost have a physical reaction to listening to him. It's hard for me. I want to turn it off because he's so out of tune. It feels like I have vertigo or something. Like I start to feel lightheaded or I don't know. It's really weird. So I really struggle with that. It's not on every single song, but it's just certain
No,
moments in
but there
certain
are
songs.
moments, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and I even thought, am I like just imagining this and I'm compounding it in my imagination and I Googled it and there's other people that say the exact same thing, so you agree with me, so it's
Mm.
just not me being overly critical or but who's I have to look at Steve Harris though with this and say I mean, Steve Harris had some gut instinct that this was going to work, and clearly it didn't. Uh,
Mm.
some of it too is the time factor that this came out. This is the 90s. I know we talk about this on and off camera, that metal in Europe in the 90s was a lot stronger than metal in the States. Grunge had really taken over in the US by this point. So it was bad timing for anybody to release a record if you were a metal band. So that doesn't help the situation for them. But I mentioned this on Fear of the Dark that maybe I don't know how much input Nigel Green had, but maybe if they
I guess his influence or input when it comes to actual producing and what takes to use and whatnot is minimum.
right,
I think that is Steve's part of the
right,
production is going, is this the take? Is this the
right.
guitar solo? That must be Steve. Yeah.
And so I blame Steve
Mm.
for some of this, for letting some of these things go by, that the out-of-tune singing. I don't personally have a problem with the production on this record. I actually kind of like it. It's a little dark sounding, but
Mm.
some of these takes are really stiff. Makes me wonder if they play to a click track on some of these because some of these things feel like they're just under tempo. They're really stiff, flat. Flat is a word even though I say I kind of like the production, I still don't think it's great. I think some of it sounds really flat. Some of the playing
Mm.
sounds flat on it. The singing is we've talked about the singing as far as being in tune, and maybe there could have been better takes done. And so to me, that falls on Steve. And
Mm.
if there was a strong voice as a producer, and Blaze, I didn't know this until you said this in your intro that I had no idea that Wolfsbane was as popular as they were. I thought they were just a pub band. I didn't realize they were that popular, but they still weren't as popular as Iron Maiden. So I don't know this,
Mm.
but I'm going to guess that Blaze probably came in and didn't push back on Steve little, if at all. And
Mm.
as you mentioned in the intro, your intro, Bruce did push back on
Mm.
Steve. Bruce was
Yeah, yeah.
probably the only guy that could really did and would really push back on Steve. Also, Adrian's not here.
Mm.
Adrian is probably the next guy that might slightly push back or
Slightly.
assert himself
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit more as far as the songwriting and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Adrian asserted himself more into the writing of the band. That's not the case anymore. Those guys aren't around. I'm guessing that Blaze was just went along and did whatever ever Steve said. And it's to the detriment of the record. If it was a singer, if they had somehow gotten Ian Gillan in the band, somebody like that with a reputation, Ian Gillan would have and probably could have pushed back and probably said, "Hey, no, I'm not going to sing that. That's no, this isn't good. This needs to be." Same thing with a producer. A producer, as we get into the songs, I'm going to talk about how there's too
Mm.
much formula in some of these songs, and this is something that would really start to plague the band later on. That's where I mentioned the foreshadowing. Slow intro, long, slow intro.
Mm.
Verse gets heavy, double time for the guitar solo. Back to the original. I mean, it's just like sometimes the formula just doesn't work here. And again, that's where if there was a producer to sort of push back on some of this stuff,
Mm.
but there isn't. And so this is the record. There's a lot of people that do really like this record. I've told you the story about
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
met Blaze. He came to a record store signing
Mm.
about 15 years ago when I lived in Pennsylvania, and there was a guy that pulled up with a Corvette with I think it was the Virtual 11 cover painted on the top of his Corvette. So there's fans that do really like this record. I do see things about this record that you could latch on to and really dig and get into because there is some stuff does really work on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And proof of that is that they played some of these songs even when Bruce came back.
Yeah. Yeah. They did.
And
They did.
Sign of the Cross, Man on the Edge, right? They did at least those. And so if you don't need to do the thought experiment of, well, what would this album have sounded like if Bruce sang on it? Well, go listen to the live versions of Sign of the Cross and Man on the Edge, and you'll get more of a feel for what this album might have sounded like
Mm.
if Bruce had sung on it. So yeah, it's just this weird record. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people, you think it the same feelings towards the Priest record with Ripper. It's just a confusing thing. It's a weird time for heavy metal. Sort of a confusing record. You mentioned the B-sides. Again, decision making.
Mm.
Steve, who made
Mm.
that decision to not put those songs on the record? Probably Steve.
I guess
And
so. Yeah.
and it's not to the betterment that if two of those three songs were on this record, it would have made it a better record. And
Yeah.
again, a producer probably would have heard that. A producer
Mm.
probably would have said, "No, that's out of tune. Those vocals are out of tune. We got to fix that." A producer might have would have said, "Guys, you can't. This is no. There's too many songs in a row that start off slow. You can't do that."
Mm.
Uh, Bruce would have pushed back. Adrian might have inserted himself more in the songwriting,
Mm.
you know. And so it's the record that we have. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be, and it's not as good as some people make it out to
No.
be. The truth
No.
lies somewhere in the
Yeah.
middle.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to answer a few of the things you talked about now, because I mean, seven of the 11 songs, and I'm not counting the bass intro for Blood on the World Sands, start off slowly or soft. So if you count that bass intro, there's 8 of 11 songs that start off with the same kind of mood setting. If you ask
Yeah.
me, that's wrong. That's not a good way to build an album. And of course, let's okay. If you take two things, is this what you would call juxtaposition? When you take two things that you don't really think would work, but when you do put them together, like Blaze
Yeah.
Bayley and Iron Maiden, it could have been something. It could have been like, okay, what is the sum of those two parts? It could have maybe made something great. Maybe Steve had some sort of, he heard something in Blaze's voice,
Yeah.
and the songwriting, like, okay, this will be different, but it will be great. And the rest of the guys, including Blaze, sort of went along with it. But again, they really should have had a Martin Birch person, a producer, a proper producer, or like you say, an Adrian Smith, or just someone who says, "Is this the right? This is the fourth song that start off away, sort of the same way. Should we change the start of this song? Maybe we take that away or put something else in the beginning. I mean, just to make it more interesting." And another thing that when you talk about the quality, we talk about the qualities of Blaze Bayley. If you listen to the Wolfsbane album that they put out, the first one was they were signed to Def American, so it was Rick Rubin who
Yeah.
produced the first album, and the second one, which is like a longer EP, I think it's a 6-track EP or something. It has a weird title, All Hell's Breaking Loose Down Little Kathy Wilson's Place, or something like that. That was produced by Brendan O'Brien, who has done like huge albums after, and actually working with Wolfsbane was one of his first proper production credits. And if you listen to the way that Blaze sings in Wolfsbane, and this might come out weird, but think about it. He has a vocal style which is a bit like David Lee Roth of Van Halen,
Yeah.
where he is talking and singing,
Yeah.
rhythmically, but with a lot of attitude and
Yeah.
some sort of gusto and
Yeah. I
charisma
wouldn't
to
say
it.
shouting, but he's what you're talking about. Yeah. Like, and I don't want to say there's no melody, but yeah, his thing was a little bit more of that, like half talking, kind of shouting type of thing. He wasn't like a guy that sang like lots of notes in his melodies and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It was more of an aggressive kind of uh you're right. That's a good way
Yeah.
of saying it.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I've never seen Wolfsbane live, unfortunately. I would love to actually, but listening to live tracks with the band, listening to the albums, the style that what he's doing in Wolfsbane works perfectly. So if he has that sort of style, and Steve sees that, hears that, but where in Steve's mind does that sort of, where is that marriage between that guy and Iron Maiden? And I can't really hear that. I think we only have to be Steve Harris to actually know what he heard. And as I said before,
Yeah.
even the other guys of the band were like, "Are you sure about this, Steve? Maybe we should try out some more singers."
And
And
it's strange that he would do this because, like, when Bruce comes into the band, you can clearly hear how he's taking advantage of Bruce's tools. In a time
mhm,
where dinosaurs walked the earth,
bad song
deliberately,
though, but
like,
yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like pushing
yeah,
Bruce's range to do these like incredibly acrobatic things, almost like, wow, this guy has this superpower. I'm going to exploit it type of thing. But he doesn't seem to recognize that I mean, clearly when he wrote the stuff with Paul in the band, that he
yeah,
wrote that highlight what Paul was very good at, and Paul did it very well, and Steve wrote it very well. He did the same thing when Bruce came in, and it's just a weird thing why it didn't work here because he was able to make it work before with two other singers. What goes wrong here? I don't know.
no. Uh, so to sum it all up, it could have been something, perhaps, but there are a lot of circumstances, there are a lot of choices made that, if you asking me, and it's our podcast, so I can say this if I like to, I think they were wrong decisions. There is a long line of of wrong decisions made. And talking about, you say you sort of like the production. I'm not a big fan of this production at all. Uh, there, the huge thing for me that is not working on this album is the guitars. The
Yeah.
guitars are too low. They're too
Yeah.
tame. They are not like there's not enough aggression or attitude in them. I don't
Yeah.
think it comes down to the actual guitar playing of Dave and Janik, because they could for sure play aggressive guitar, but they almost get a bit, is the word subdued?
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
push
That's when I was
back.
saying flat. That's what I
Yeah,
was kind of thinking too. Yeah. It does have this real, you're right, like a little bit of a blanket over it. Like there's just
and
something. That's why I said the click track thing too. It makes me, it
yeah,
just doesn't sound like they went in and they cranked up the amps and they ripped it out like a live recording in the studio. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels very sort of like pieced together in multiple takes and maybe guitars overdubbed later
yeah,
on and that kind of thing. And you're right, the guitars don't have a whole lot of like oomph and punch to them rhythmically. At least Steve's bass doesn't really. There's some moments where it jumps out, and there's other moments
yeah,
where it's really kind of lost in the mix. It's a real, which is weird for Steve again, because usually
yeah.
his bass is right loud and
The
upfront.
one thing that is loud in the mix is the drums,
Yeah,
but unfortunately, it's not "No Pray for the Dying" Nico McBrain
yeah,
who's playing here. He is so. I might even say that he sounds uninspired. Actually, it's like he's
yeah,
being held back and just playing it safe. As we go through the songs, there are a few of these songs that I just what is wrong with Nico here? What
yeah.
is
I
going
know.
on?
I know. I thought the
Uh, uh,
same thing, and we talked
yeah,
about that a little on Fear of the Dark. That it seemed like
yeah,
but this is even worse on
yeah.
here. Like if you had told me that Steve demoed these things out with a drum machine and then handed it to the band, I would have said, "Oh, okay." Because at times it almost sounds like a drum machine, not
Oh,
sonically, but like he's just playing so like basic, which
yeah.
is not really something you think of with
That
Nico. It's so not there. Like you don't really even notice him. And again, some of these tempos are just so like sluggish or something. Like they're
yeah,
just not at the right speed. They're just 5 clicks too slow or something. And it just causes it to feel really like, I don't know, just really. If this was released today, I would say, oh, this was computerized and cut and pasted, and
mm,
they were never even in the same room when they recorded it together. There's no feeling of like interaction here or energy with the band. It does. It's sort of there's a few songs to get off the ground, and we'll touch on them when we get into
mm,
them. But for the most part, it just feels too sluggish or something.
yeah. And another thing that is not making any favors for Blaze is that the vocals are not at all popping out at all at point. And some of these soft, slow intros, his voice is so low in the
Yeah,
mix.
you
It's
can't
like
hear it.
where is Blaze?
I
And
know.
they took forever to mix this album. Maybe it's this Nigel Green guy who is to blame for this because he sort of adapted I mean, they recorded
Yeah,
Hysteria for like 2 years or something. So maybe his way of working was not working for Maiden. I don't. Now I'm just talking out of my ass here. I have no knowledge about how they went about to actually record it, but there is something that is not working here. And I mean, I'm a bit allergic to over compressed mixes,
yeah,
but with this one, and especially Blaze's vocals, he should have been more compressed
yeah, and
when they mixed
louder and
it and
yeah.
louder.
Well, again,
It's
it's the producer thing. It's like I wouldn't be surprised if Steve kept remixing it, kept going, not letting it go, trying to be a perfectionist and keep
mm,
working on it. And whenever that happens,
mm,
it always lands up going too far. And before you know it, the whole thing has gotten real away from where it started at the beginning. And again, if this was Martin Birch, maybe Martin would have said, nope, that's the take. Nope, that's the mix. We
mm,
got 3 weeks to do this. It's it's done. Maybe this was just a case of they had too much time to work on this and it
Mm.
worked to the detriment of the band, which is weird because now when they record, Steve always says this, like they put pressure on themselves to get their albums done now
Yeah,
and give themselves a limited time frame. Maybe this was a case, maybe they learned from this record. You know, they look back at this time
yeah,
period when they had too much time, when they overthought it, and maybe they were nervous. You know, Bruce leaves the band and they got to get this right, and they just overthought the whole thing. Where maybe the thing to do would have been introduce Blaze with a live EP where you got
mm,
two new songs and he's doing two old songs, a
yeah,
Bruce song and a Paul song. That would have been a way to ease into this and maybe have the band feel themselves out live and
yeah.
get that and then go into the studio and transfer that energy into the studio. This just sounds like it's overthought. It's
I think it's one of the problems actually. Now when you mention it, that if this had been like 15 years earlier, they could have, like when Bruce came into the band, they could have done a short tour somewhere,
yeah.
trying out songs, trying out the singer in front of an audience. But this is the 90s, and there are Maiden is a big band, even though, like you say, in the US and of course everywhere else in the world, grunge is a big thing. The climate of music have changed. They they should have tried out, done a tour. Like you said, it's a great idea just to make like a live EP, something, just play around with it and try. But now they sort of try to keep it top secret, top secret, and recording and recording and recording, and just to make that sort of huge entrance when
Yeah.
it's done. Listen to the new Iron Maiden album, and it's the longest Iron Maiden album that we
Yeah.
ever put out. Like this is Maiden to the max, but
Yeah.
it didn't actually that didn't work to the benefit of the band, unfortunately. So where were we? We were going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
talk
What do you
about the
got for
cover.
your show
Yeah.
and tell? For everybody
Uh,
out there, if you're in audio land, podcast land, I forgot to mention at the beginning that I have a YouTube channel, Layer the Alchemist, and we post the entire video for this session. So this next segment here, Matthias is going to be showing some of the different variations of the album and single covers and
mhm,
stuff like that. So to fully appreciate this section, you need to go to the YouTube channel.
yeah. Like you said, it's the guy from Rush. How did you pronounce? I thought his last name was Sim, but you said Sim.
I
Hugh
have no
Sim.
idea how to pronounce it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I say Sim then. Hugh Sim, the guy who made the covers for Rush. So when I first heard that the new cover is going to be made by Hugh Sim, I was like, yeah, now we're talking. This could be really cool because I've always been a fan of the Rush covers. And I mean, to me, it's a bit like Hypnosis, the Pink Floyd
Yeah.
UFO sleeves. So does he come up with? He comes up with Eddie as a plastic doll put in some sort of torture rack of a kind. And to me, what's the worst thing? The worst thing is that this doesn't look good. It looks plastic, and it's
Yeah.
so overly violent. It's kind of weird, even. But Eddie has eyes. That just weirds me out. Every time I see it, it's like, no, Eddie does not have eyes.
I never
Eddie
noticed that.
has a fire in his black holes in the middle of his face. So this
Yeah.
this is wrong. Another a bit more fun thing is that they thought that this, or the record label or someone thought that this was actually a bit violent and gruesome. So there is, if you flip it over, there is an alternative cover with Eddie sitting in an electric chair. And this version, which is on the back side of the CD booklet, It's just, to me, plain boring. So this is ugly, and this is boring. Not good. Uh, what else do I have? I have this is the Japanese CD version, which is a two CD disc with a bonus disc with the single B sides that we will talk about later. So this is the original Japanese, and of course, Maiden being Maiden, they put out a vinyl. The front looks the same. It looks the same. It also has this very weird compressed logotype with it just looks a bit wrong to my eyes. I'm nitpicking here, but then I'm a nerd, so woohoo.
Mhm.
Uh, this is a very rare vinyl. It was made in the 90s. Bands hardly put out
Yeah.
vinyls in those. So if you want to get hold of this, I would say in US dollars, you have to pay something like $200 US dollars or
Yeah.
something, about 2000 Swedish.
Where was it released? You know, was it released in Europe on
Uh,
vinyl in the 90s or?
This is the UK vinyl.
Okay.
And another nice detail is that it was pressed on clear vinyl. Yeah.
Wow.
Also, lyrics and so the booklet, so to say, for the album is this very long sort of fold out thingy where you
Yeah.
can have the lyrics and all the production credits and details, of course. Yes. As for now, I have more stuff to show you when we start to talk about the singles at the end of this episode. But as for now, that's pretty much what I have to show you and talk about.
All right. Shall we move into the songs?
Why not?
All right. The album opens with Sign of the Cross. This is one of the better, maybe the best song on the record, or at least one of the top three for me. The monks chanting at the beginning is pretty cool, sets a mood. Like you mentioned earlier, I never really thought of that, but you're right. This, in a typical Iron Maiden record, this would have been the last song. This would have been the epic. So it's interesting that they kind of start with this. I think Blaze sounds pretty good on this one. I think the chorus is really good. I like the section changes. Like after the second chorus, there's this thing that comes in with the strings. There's a little keyboard string sound that's really cool. The part where everything gets quiet and you can hear the monks in the background, and then the section after that is really cool. Again, the production and the performance feels a little stiff, you know, like it's like these sections are really cool. I wish that it was a little bit more energy to it or something, or the tempo was maybe a little faster in those sections. Like the tempo in the verse and the chorus sound good, but yeah, this is a great song. And I mean, this is one of the ones that they still played live. And did they just play this live not that long ago on one of
Mm,
the
yeah,
real recent tours?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is probably is this the most
The one
endear?
before this one. Yeah,
Yeah, is this the most probably out of the Blaze era? Is this the song that's hung around the most, you would say?
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah, this and
and
probably
the Klansman
the
is also there.
Klansman. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
and the Klansman are probably the two, big songs from the Blaze era. But yeah, I think this is great. This is a great
Mm.
album opener. Sort of the dark production works a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
I like the mood of it. I like the darkness of it and the vibe and the section changes. A little progressive. I don't like to say new Iron Maiden is progressive, but this kind of is. There's all these sort of riff changes and stuff like that, and
Mm.
towards the middle of the song. So yeah, great opener.
Yeah, like I said, when I first heard it in on the that fan club convention in August of '95, I liked this one. I still like it. I'm glad that this is a song that they have done with Bruce and sort of highlighted from the X Factor album. It's a great opening song for any album. Um, a few facts about the song. There's no surprise there. I think most people know that this is inspired by the film, The Name of the Rose. It's also a book by Umberto Eco. It has Sean Connery and Ron Perlman starring in this film. A really good one. It's a sort of detective story, but with monks in medieval times. Uh, According to the fan club magazine, this song took almost 2 weeks to mix. 2 weeks
Wow.
to mix a song, and frankly, isn't that a sign of that there is something wrong with the recording?
Yeah.
Or that's
Or did
just
somebody who overthought it? Again, back to my theory that Steve was just overthinking this, and without the checks and balances, nobody could stop him from obsessing over the mix or something like that. When I wouldn't be surprised if you heard some rough demo of them rehearsing this song before they recorded it, it would probably sound better.
yeah. Um, Another fun fact is that they apparently thought about releasing this as the first single from the album because Iron Maiden don't get radio play anyway.
Yeah.
So why put out a sort of short song? Why not do it like a statement sort of thing and put out the longest song of the album, which is a very fun idea if you ask me. But of course, they didn't go with that idea. But anyway, yeah, Sign of the Cross, Steve Harris penned. Um, it's a cracker. I like it a lot.
Okay, Lord of the Flies. I don't like that opening guitar pattern that whatever that is.
Is
But
isn't that like 100% AC/DC?
yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah,
say it sounds very AC/DC, like the thing that Angus
yes.
does. But that thing that comes in underneath it, like I think Steve's bass sounds really good there. I do kind of like that chord progression underneath that. Uh, I think the verse melody is good, but here's where Blaze has some pitch issues where he sounds a little off at times. I don't like when he does the oh, I can't remember if that's even the right song, but he does the O's, whoa,
Mm.
whoa, whoa thing. He does this in a couple other songs where it just, I don't know, I don't like when he does that. And sometimes with Blaze's voice, it sounds like it's a bit too lacking in it. Just sounds like he's singing loud and everything is like this, everything's at the same volume, everything blah 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 blah, blah. It's lacking like sort of the it's lacking like where Bruce would have those just little subtle dynamics in his lines, and so it gets fatiguing because it sounds like Blaze is almost kind of like yelping and shouting or something, and sometimes it doesn't work. Here again, I think he sounds, the verse part is pretty decent, but so this one's okay, you know, not the
Mm.
best song, but it's not the worst song.
It's one of my favorites of the album, actually. I do like the AC/DC-esque sort of thing that Janikers. It's a Janikers and Steve Harris song. It's Janik's music, most of it, and Harris lyrics. The no surprise, Lord of the Flies is inspired by with the same name by William Golding. Uh, but when it comes to what they're actually singing about, I sort of just fail to see the similarities between the book and the lyric of this song. So let's say it's vaguely inspired by the book with the same name, Lord of the Flies. This was one of the songs that I think they nailed when they played live back in '95. This song had a bit more, the tempo was a bit higher. There was a bit more fire and spark to the performance because, again, the production for this song doesn't really work. It doesn't have the aggression that I think that this song, Lord of the Flies, actually needs to work. But being performed live back then, it sort of brought it out and made it a fuller song.
Yeah.
And again, maybe if they had done a tour, played a few gigs, trying out the material in front of an audience, maybe they would have thought that, maybe we should fire it up a bit more, higher, more energy, higher tempo, or something. As it is on the album, it's not as great as it could have been. And this is also one of the songs that Bruce has done live. They sang this in on Death on the Road '03.
Yeah.
And unusually for Iron Maiden, that they even changed the key. They transposed the key to another one for Bruce to sing in. And like you said, the key and the way that Blaze's voice sits in is a bit weird. And
Yeah.
I would imagine he thought it was a bit uncomfortable for him to sing.
Yeah.
I would guess, but yeah, I so like I said, I really like this song, but the version on the album isn't the version of this song.
Yeah. Okay, next, Man on the Edge. I really like this one. This one has a lot of energy. I could have seen this being the opening track on the record. Uh, I love that little bass. Steve does this like bass fill right before the chorus, where he's sort of going up the neck.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think the chorus is really catchy. Yeah. So this is a good one. I really like this one, and I know that I think they had a video for this one, right?
yeah, yeah.
This was
It
a
was the first
single, and it
single.
was a
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I like this energy. I wish they could have tapped into this a little bit more on this record.
and it works with Blaze's voice and his sort of attitude a lot
Yeah,
better. I also like Man on the Edge a lot. I think it's a great song. It's one of the songs that they have done with Bruce later on as well. Like we said, it's the first single, and to me, it's an obvious first single, choosing from these songs on the album. I don't have that much to say about it, actually. It's, of course, it's inspired by Falling Down, the movie with Michael Douglas. And I think this must be the only Iron Maiden song where they sing the word lunch.
lunch. Yeah,
A briefcase, a lunch, and a man on the
yeah.
edge. Yeah.
All right. Next, Fortunes of War, or as Blaze sings it, Fortunes of War, which just drives me absolutely crazy. I can't handle the way he says that word. It just, and I get it because for those out there that maybe have never sung, there's certain vowels and certain sounds that are hard to say when you're singing. And if you sing fortunes, that sound can be very problematic. So you have to really dial down that frictive there, the T. But it's overdone here. Whenever I hear this, it just sounds to me like he's going fortunes of war, and he repeats that too many times. Another problem. Who's the songwriter on this? Is this just Steve?
Steve
Yep.
Harris.
Yep. I didn't know that before I looked, but I guessed it because it's this bad habit of Steve repeating the same like line over and over again. The slow intro is too long. I mentioned this earlier. This is kind of foreshadowing where modern Iron Maiden would be with these long, slow intros. I do like the bass right after that slow intro. The second half of the song feels too slow and sluggish. I don't like the solos during the double time part. And again, I don't like the way he sings the chorus. So, not a totally terrible song, but not the best either. I don't really like
Mm,
this one.
okay. I was shitting all over From Here to Eternity in the last episode, and I think that I have to do that on Fortunes of War 2. It's just too long. It's too repetitive. The soft intro, and it just takes an eternity to get going. And the tempo doesn't really work for me. And they did this song live, believe it or not. Really, really weird.
Wow.
And I haven't really. Steve rarely talks about when it comes to personal inspiration? Is this inspired? I mean, if you read the lyric, it's about uh, someone coming back from a war, a
Yeah.
soldier or something. But I think must have been one of the Maiden A to Z guys who suggested that this might be inspired by the divorce
Yeah.
that Steve had been going through, the fortunes of a divorce,
Yeah.
and the bitterness and feelings and what mindset you're in. It would be interesting if someone would dare to ask Steve Harris if Fortunes of War is actually about his the when he divorced from Lorraine. Um, this is actually one of my 10 least favorite Maiden songs. I don't like this song. It's enough said about Fortunes of War, Fortunes of
War, fortunes
and
of
the
war.
hockey choir. It just repeats it though.
Yeah.
And I, no, no,
Yeah.
oh, no, I say.
Look for the truth. Another slow intro. More whoa, oh, oh things that I don't like. Whenever that happens, that to me is just like we don't know what to do here. So somebody just start going, whoa, whoa, doing that thing. It's a cliche for Iron Maiden at this point, and it doesn't work. Another note is a lot of the guitar melodies, Iron Maiden is sort of famous for those sing-along guitar melodies. A lot of them aren't very good on here. They're very just kind of simple and just don't really sound that special. I do like the guitar melody. Speaking of that comes in after the second chorus, though, with the strings underneath it. But just doesn't do anything for me. I can't really even remember the song to tell you the truth. I have to go off of my notes. No.
No, it's just another slow intro, and I don't like the choir. It's boring, basically. This song could have easily been changed for uh, two of the B sides that we will talk about later
Yeah.
on. Uh, Look for the Truth is, for an Iron Maiden song, surprisingly forgettable. Uh, uh,
So
let's
let's
look for
forget
the
about
next
it.
song. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's forget about it. The Aftermath. Yet another slow intro, but this one sounds kind of cool though. And I do like the guitar melody that enters over the top of that chord progression. The main song is too slow. I don't like the way Blaze follows like the chords with his melody, like rhythmically and pitch wise. That's kind of like I don't know. It sounds very forced and kind of boring. Who wrote this one? This is
It's
Harris,
Steve.
Bailey, Garris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Syncopated riff section after the second chorus, I think is interesting. There's that predictable double time part. Again, by the time I sort of get to here, it's just sounding like these maiden moves, let's call them, like double time in the guitar solo, where they're so effective early on, fall flat. And it just started with Fear of the Dark for me, where, and even to a certain degree on No Prayer for the Dying, where just these things that on paper they should work, but for whatever reason, they're just not working anymore. And I don't know. I mean, not to go off on a tangent, but maybe they should have, when Bruce wanted to leave, that maybe the thing to do would have been for the band to take like 2 years off, 2 or 3 years off or something. I mean, it was the 90s. There were a lot of this begins the era of bands taking more time between records. They
Yeah.
should have
Yeah.
taken a couple years off and just let everybody recharge, do a solo record if you want to do a solo record and just everybody come back because there's just too much on this album that is just stale and it's weird because like I said, it's not like they're doing something they've never done before. A lot of these are like standard Maiden moves as far as the, double time in for the guitar solo, the
Mm.
chord progressions and stuff, but they just don't work. And I don't know, it's just that when you're putting songs together, I guess it's just you're a songwriter. I write songs. You
Mm.
just have to
Mm.
have that. it's like making a meal or something. You just have to have the right amount. Even if it's a simple meal, all the ingredients just have to blend and work together, and you got to have
Yeah,
just the right ingredients heated to the right temperature, et cetera, et cetera. And here it's just something, it throws off the taste. There's too much of something, too little of something else, and
yeah.
it just throws off it's overcooked, it's undercooked, and it just throws it off.
Yeah, maybe that's a thing that to use that food analogy that you're just using, that some people love a lot of salt in their food. I mean, like a lot of salt. And this is a very salty album. But if you're not really keen on too much salt in your album, so to speak, maybe this isn't the album for you. The Aftermath. It could actually be one of the heaviest Iron Maiden songs. I mean, after that, they could have skipped that soft, slow intro and just gone into ba da do da 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 do da do da,
Yeah.
and just sort of done that even more, even heavier, even louder. Uh, I like the up tempo and the solo parts, but it's a bit little too late, I think. Um, Blaze said that he was inspired by his great grandfather who fought in the First World War. So he had a picture given to him by his father, and that photograph sort of set him off. And he somewhere in an interview, I think it could have been like the press kit for this album, could have been, where he talks about that in the First World War there were also like poets and artists fighting, and some of them wrote about their experiences in the war, and that sort of inspired Blaze to write uh, the lyric for The Aftermath. This was also played live back then. And now I have to go off a bit here because this is really interesting. A few weeks back, I went to the place of Jönköping, south of Stockholm, a few hours drive south of Stockholm. And Blaze was doing his X Factor 30th anniversary tour, and was doing this gig. It was a quite small place, but it was absolutely packed and sold out. And his band that he has used for the last tours that I've seen with him is a British band called Absolva. And what they did to The Aftermath and a few other of these songs was that they added harmonies, and they just brought out more
Yeah.
guitarism out of these songs.
Interesting.
And I must say that I don't think that they made the X Factor a 10 out of 10, but they for sure just got up one notch in the grades by just doing more of the guitars. And I think that this is also the time to point your finger at Steve Harris. He said that when they were working on this album, that they were very careful about the melodies of the songs and not sort of bringing too much to the table, just to and keep it sparse, just to keep it more clean. And I think that is just wrong. That's wrong,
Yeah.
Steve. That's not how Iron Maiden is working. Iron Maiden has always been, well, not always, but for the most part at least, a two guitar band. And with Dennis Stratton in the band, with Adrian Smith in the band, both Dennis and Adrian, they brought guitar harmonies, counter melodies. They just made it. I mean, if we're talking of a film, they made the music more widescreen. But on this album, it's more like an old black and white 4:3
Yeah.
sized movie. And you can like that, but to me, that's not to the strength of the melodies. It's not to the strength of Iron Maiden, basically. I absolutely loved what these guys in Absolva did. I don't know if it was on Blaze's suggestion, but I guess it's those guitar players and the bass player. It was a really good band, I must say. The drummer was a bit so-so, but the rest of the band, Absolva, worked great for Blaze and really did something for the material. So a huge thumbs up for Absolva for doing that. But this song, uh, no, it's not one of my favorites. And if I were to make another track list of the material we have at hand here, I think that this one also would be out, actually.
Yeah. All right, Judgment of Heaven. I really dislike the melody and lyrics that Blaze is singing at the beginning of this. It sounds so awkward and just forced and just not working. The melody is, this is maybe one of his worst, most out of key singing moments on the record for
Yeah.
me. It's like it makes me feel it's very hard to listen to. The guitar solos are kind of cool, and I like the melody after the one solo, but nah, this is the pits for me. I don't like this at all.
Then it might surprise you, John, to hear that this is one of the absolute true fan deep cut favorites.
Whoa.
Mm. And this is a song that they never played this live, but there are a lot of fans who like X Factor and they absolutely love
Oh my
Judgment
God.
of Heaven. I am not one
What?
of them, but I have to say it's one of the songs that listening to back to the album preparing for this episode, it's one of the songs that I would actually rate a bit higher than I would have done back in the day. I sort of like the drum part with the stress
Yeah.
pattern, the katu 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 katu,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
that's
is like
cool.
clairvoyant assassin drumming type style from Nickel there. But again, this could have been worked on a lot more. And like you say, Blaze's voice, he's out of tune, and in the beginning of the song where he's so low, he's
Yeah.
almost like it's also almost like he can't get the tone because it's
Yeah.
too low in the register for him. And I mean, they must have heard this recording it. They spent a year recording this album, and they couldn't find the time to correct that and re-record it in another key or something. You don't
Well,
even have to
this is
re-record the drums. You only have to re-record the guitars and the bass
yeah.
just to change the key of the song. It's so weird, and it takes too long to get started with the
Yeah.
soft intro and everything. Um, One thing though that is really almost sensational about this song is the actual lyric. This is a Steve song, and this is Steve writing a lyric about contemplating taking his own life. It's the
Yeah.
protagonist of the song is actually thinking about maybe I should just kill myself now
Yeah.
because of where I am in life. But then again, he sort of changes his mind, like Blaze is singing. But that's the easy way.
Right.
You have to sort of get your grip and get back in there, which is, I think, it's a very bleak and dark lyrical matter. But again, it's sort of positive in the way that you should really try a bit harder. If you think life is that dark, maybe you have just to sort of have to get in there and make it work, which is
Which
an
yeah, the lyrics are like you said, they are good, but there's something about that melody. Like I just do
yeah.
not like that, but that's the easy way. That's the selfish way. It's just like
Mm.
the melody doesn't line up with the intensity of the lyrics or something. I just would have totally have taken these lyrics away from this song and put them in something else. It doesn't work at all for me. And it's puzzling to me that
So
there's a
when
song
we
later on that I think would be the deep cut song that I'd like to hear them play live, but this is not it for me. And maybe I just can't get past the intro, but
yeah, it's a song. I don't like the song, but again, it has a bit more because of the drum pattern. It has a bit more energy,
yeah,
and the album are in dire need of some sort of
Energy.
up tempo. Yeah,
Yeah.
but not for me. It's not on my X factor.
Yeah. All right. Blood on the world's hands. World's hands or blood on the world? Blood on the world's hands. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're both bass players, so of course we love Steve's bass intro there. That's pretty cool. The main riff with the guitars is really cool. Again, I don't like the way Blaze sticks too closely to the riff at certain parts in this song. It makes it sound real clunky and kind of awkward. I do really like the riff under the "It's Out of Control, Blood on the World's Hands" parts. I like the use of the keyboard string sounds in this. I really like this song. This to me is kind of like Sign of the Cross, like "Blood on the World's
Mm,
Hands" and "Sign of the Cross." They're kind of dark. They've got a lot of changes to them. I
mm,
could have seen him pushing more songs more like those two songs, and it could have been a really interesting record,
mm,
if that was the case, if they had pushed more there. But this is probably this Man on the Edge and Sign of the Cross are the three songs that I really like on this record.
mm. I absolutely love Blood on the World Sounds. I think it's a great song. It's certainly a song that the album needs.
Yeah.
I think you said, it's a Steve song. Steve's writing. Uh, it may even be my favorite on the album, actually. I think Blood on the World Sounds is great. They did this one live too. Uh, Again, with a bit more fire to it, a bit more spark, uh, which really benefited the song. Um,
Has Bruce ever sung this?
no, he hasn't. And
Yeah.
it would be interesting. I think he could
Yeah.
do something with it. But again, I think, talking about Blaze's strengths,
Yeah.
I think this is a song where his vocal style has a bit of an urgency to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it sort of works that way, because the lyrical matter is very dark. About I think Steve was inspired sort of by the conflict in former Yugoslavia and Bosnia. Uh, it's again talking about the concert I went to with Blaze doing a 30th anniversary gig with Absolva. They also did this song a better one, bringing out some more harmonies. It just improved the song. I think it's a good one. What I do not like is that the bass solo is not a track of its own.
Yeah.
They should have just dropped that intro from and just had like a, I don't know, how is it, a minute or something,
Yeah.
45 seconds or something. That could just have been like an intermission, a short
Yeah.
track on its own. Because I would love just to go da da do da 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 do.
Yeah. I
It also
agree with
had
that.
this. The music is also interesting. Is this kind of strange waltz of a kind. So there's lots of things that I absolutely love with this song.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. That's the
Yeah,
part that I love underneath that chorus or that
yeah,
do do da do 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 da do do do. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, I love this song. Yeah.
All right, The Edge of Darkness. Here's the notes that I have for this. Slow intro again, too formulaic. Uh, Again, it's just not working for me. The lyrics are from the Apocalypse Now movie, the book Heart of
Mm,
Darkness, and he
mm,
literally quotes there's the iconic opening scene, Saigon, I'm still in Saigon. I wanted a mission, they served it to me on a silver platter or whatever, and then I'd never want another I mean, he's
mm,
literally like word for word quoting the movie here. About 80% of the lyrics are lifted directly from the movie, which it's not that Iron Maiden hasn't written songs about movies before. They have. It's not that they haven't quoted from movies, but this to me is a little bit much when you're basically just taking the dialogue and just putting it right to the music. That doesn't work for me. Um, it's not a 0 out of 10, but I don't want to listen to this. I'm not going to listen to this song again. When this is all said and done on this record, there's really only three, maybe four songs that I would put on a playlist and want to listen to again. This isn't one of them.
Mm. Okay, so let me say it like this. If this song had been on another album, would that song have been better to you? Because I think when you're this far into the album, and here
Yeah,
comes another one with a slow
yeah,
intro and
yeah.
blah blah
There's
blah.
definitely fatigue. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
could have been swapped out with one of the other slow songs, and you're right. By this point, by the time you're this far into the record, this is one of the things with this album. I always struggle to get through this record. I, in fact, getting ready for this podcast might have been one of the only times I've ever sat in one sitting and listened to this record from beginning to end. I always had to take this in pieces because it's just by the time you get to here, you're just like, oh my God, you're just worn out from these slow intros and everything. It's just so, and again, that whole thing about Blaze, like you can't hear him. Like he's
mm,
talking in the beginning and it's so low in the mix. And sure, it's part of it is part of the mix. And also, when you're singing that low in your range, Bruce does this very well. Bruce, he like over enunciates even when he's down in his lower range. He gets very dramatic and yeah, he can
mm,
talk, you speak quietly, but he's able to sort of still push energy to have it come jump out of the mix. And here it sounds like Blaze is like mumbling or something. It's like
yeah.
so like just lost. It's really really weird and yeah, I agree with you because by this point it's like it's really worn you down these some of these songs.
Mm. At the time when it came out, it was actually one of my favorite songs of the album. I must confess, though, it hasn't really stood the test of time that well. But I still think it's an okay song. I would keep this for my X Factor album, uh, but it's certainly not of the better ones. Uh, and like you said about the lyric and that it's when I saw them, I hadn't seen the movie prior to hearing this song, and when I saw the movie, I knew this song, and I was like, it's like you say, it's word for word,
Yeah,
sentence for sentence.
yeah,
It's a very brash theft, I would say,
yeah,
but no, I think one of the where it's placed on the album doesn't really benefit the song. The type of song doesn't make it jump out in any way among the rest of the material. Uh, Not that good. So let's move on
yeah.
into the night
To
and
2
2 a.m.
a.m. uh well, usually I'm asleep at 2 a.m. at my age, and this song uh would help put me to sleep. My notes are boring, more formula, but I do say Blaze sounds okay on this one. I can't
Yeah,
even remember what this song is, and that to me is a bad sign. I've listened to this record probably 6 or 7 times all the way through in the last week, and I can't even remember anything about it. I had to make notes just to just to have something to say about it. Nah,
I think that
hard pass.
Blaze. Yeah. Okay. First, according to Blaze, this song was written with him and Janik. He said so when they did the concert in Jönköping. But Steve Harris also gets a credit on this one. So I'm curious about what minuscule input Steve had to get a credit on this song if Blaze says that it was only he and Janik Gers who wrote this song. Kind of interesting, maybe a bit nerdy, but well, there you go. Again, there's this the unison guitar melody that again, Absolva in this concert, they put on a harmony, they worked it a bit and did it better. But in the end, it's just a boring song, a very bleak song. Blaze said that the lyric was inspired by an actual occasion when he got home from work, sitting home by the TV in the middle of the night and just contemplating the choices of his life and is this what life is and so on. Uh, but and again, he's singing out of tune at the end
Yeah.
of the song. Why? Why? They must have heard.
Well, I think
Blaze,
this is a
we'll take
case
it.
of,
Take this one more time. You're out of tune at the end there. Okay, roll number two.
well, I think
So,
of what it is just like what we've been saying all along. This is what happens when bands reach a certain level. You can't, they have enough success and power to do whatever they want to do. And some bands understand that you need to have a voice of reason, an outside voice, a third party. I'll give you an example of a band that doesn't do that. That's it is Metallica.
mm,
Like nobody could stop them, can stop Lars Ulrich from putting out the snare sound on Saint Anger. Anybody in their right mind would say, that's ridiculous. You're not doing that. The record company would stop them. The producer would stop them. Somebody else in the band would stop them. But when you're at that point in your career, nobody can stop you. And it's something to be said. It's like, having power or something. Some people
mm,
understand you need to have checks and balances, and there's just no more checks and balances here. Without Bruce, without Martin, there's no checks and balances. And I'm sure so I'm sure somebody like Dave Murray, he shows up and plays his parts and just goes home.
mm.
He's
I
not
would
he's
guess.
not in the business of like, let me get into a 2 week argument with Steve about a vocal take. He just goes home. And
Yeah,
I'm sure Yannick is relatively new to the band. Nico Nico is probably the only person that stands up a little bit at this, the last man standing in that
yeah,
respect at
yeah.
this point. But yeah, this is how it happens, and not recognizing that, hey, I need to check I need somebody else here to I don't know if something like happened to Steve's hearing or something, because production becomes an issue on almost every Iron Maiden record after this. There's always something weird going on, and I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, as it stands, it's a terrible song and it's
Yeah.
boring. And at this point in the record, it's just like a test of your endurance, to get through this.
And I mean, for me personally, the worst thing about this song is Nico's performance. He just seems to be totally and utterly out of inspiration playing this song.
Yeah.
It's so basic. It's literally a drum part I could do. If I were to sit behind Nico's drum kit, I could play this song the same way that Nico is performing this song.
Yeah.
It's so, and I mean, that's not Nico McBrain.
No, it's that whole, yeah. I mean, he was, I don't know, maybe he's talked about this, but maybe he was halfway checked out. Bruce has left. You mentioned that he felt like they should have at least tried some other singers, so maybe he
Yeah.
wasn't 100% on board. It's kind of like Bill Ward when he talks about Ronnie coming into the band. He always acknowledges Ronnie was an amazing singer, but the chemistry was changed and it just didn't
Mm.
feel right to him. So maybe that's the same type of thing here with Nico.
Yeah.
It's like the chemistry and the balance within the band has just changed and it just doesn't feel right. And at 2 a.m., he's checked out. 2 a.m., I'm out of here. This is all you get is a bass and a snare and a hi-hat. See
Yeah.
you later. I know.
Mm.
All right. The last song on the record, The Unbeliever. Now, for me, on first listen to this song, first couple listens, and I do stand by this sounds like whatever riffs they had left over in the trash can, they just pasted them together in this song. but in a weird way, I'm kind of okay with it. And the reason why I'm okay with it, it's not really a great song, but I like the fact that it sounds like they tried to do some different things. Doesn't
Hmm.
work really. It sounds like square pegs and round holes, but like that the intro, that little harmonic like thing that they do
Yeah.
there, that's really weird. It's like,
Hmm.
whoa, I've never heard them do that before. I wish there was, I'd rather this where it does fall flat. This isn't the best song on the record, but it sounds like they're trying to get away from the, hey, it's the guitar solo. What should we do? Let's go into a double time. How about a
Hmm.
slow intro? Like, please, guys, do this sounds like they tried to break. And who's the writer on this? It can't just be
It's
Steve, right? No,
it's Danik.
Yannick. Okay, that makes sense because
Hmm.
Yannick seems like a
Absolutely.
guy that is willing to try and do some different things. Uh, and I wish they would do the album had more of this. I wish it had more Sign of the Cross and Blood on the World's Hands and this.
Hmm.
Because when Iron Maiden in 2025 says, when people, I don't know if they say this, but when people say Iron Maiden has become a progressive band, no, they haven't. They're just playing long songs. This to me is more progressive than most of the
Absolutely.
things they do
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish that hey, okay, maybe you're going to miss the mark sometimes, or it's not going to hit a total bullseye, which this song doesn't. It doesn't, but still, it's at least interesting to listen to. I hear it and I'm like, boy, I've never heard them do that before. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of riff changes and tempo changes. Uh, what do I got written here? Although I don't like the first part of the verse rhythm, that rhythm under the verse is really weird and awkward. But that part, second half of the verse, where there's like those acoustic guitars and it goes into sort of like that proggy, like dun, 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 dun,
Uh-huh.
and the acoustic guitars underneath it. Love that.
Yeah.
Why didn't they
Yeah.
do that? Reminds me of like
Yeah.
off of Killers. What's the song off of Killers that has like some acoustic guitar in it? I'm like, whoa,
Prodigal Son. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, this doesn't sound like anything else on the record. Why didn't they do more stuff like this?
Yeah.
And does it work? Not really. It's again that first part of the verse totally awkward, doesn't work connected to that other part. Why did you do that? They should have dropped the first part of the verse, just had the part with the acoustic guitars. It would have been way more effective. But I at least give them credit for trying to do something different. So
Yeah.
when you talk about the fans' judgment of heaven being
Mm.
like this song that the fans wish they would play live, this is the song that I wish they would take out and play
Yeah. Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
live. I would much
Uh,
rather hear this than Judgment of Heaven.
yeah. Me too. I think I could almost just copy paste what you said. I love this song. I think it's easy to love something for being different just because it's different. But I think that this song actually has qualities because that it's different and because that it's just weird. It's a
Yeah,
weird song. Just like you said, the choices and the way they change from one part to another. And I mean that there's one like a really good production detail that you mentioned, the acoustic guitar.
yeah,
That's just total Janik. That's Janik Gers for you. You could hear stuff like that going on Fear the Dark as well. He's so good at that. Uh, and I love it even more for not having a slow intro. They could
yeah,
easily just tacked on this sort of acoustic guitar thing in the
yeah,
beginning, but they don't. They just go for it. And that pinch harmonics, flageolet, we say in Sweden.
uh, yeah,
Great. And I mean, Nico's playing, and I like that part where he's just playing the toms,
yeah,
where they play the sort of spacey, weird kind
yeah,
of solo with lots of delay.
uh,
I mean, again, there are more ideas in this song
yeah,
than the album,
yeah,
and I'm as far as I know, I when I mentioned that I really like this song to talking to Maiden fans, people just look at me with like a blank face and just go, "What? That last song on the X Factor? Did you like that one? Really? Okay, really? Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, but it's not like." And I think, speaking about more casual Maiden fans, they haven't even heard this song. They have just checked out.
Yeah,
They never end up with the Unbeliever. Uh, and I think Blaze's vocals is kind of cool too.
yeah,
I mean, the way that I like the chorus of this song. I think it's a great chorus. All my life.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, he does sound good on this one, and it's really weird that yeah, they could have gone more in this direction, Sign of the Cross, Blood on the World's Hands, and I think it would have been a better album for it.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's at the very end of the record, and it's a song that, like I said, I could never get through this whole record. So if by the time you get to this song, it's like it's really tested your endurance. So it affects it a little bit. Like the other day, I've got it on the 20, when did they release it? 2015, when they released the vinyl reissues that they did, the black vinyl
Yeah.
reissues.
15. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got it's a two records. So the other day when I instead of sitting down and listening to the album from the beginning, I just flipped on to the last side. And it really made me appreciate the song even more because I wasn't, I didn't have to slog through a lot of these other songs that are really duds. It was kind of being able to listen to it with fresh ears. It was kind of exciting. So if I had to make a playlist and I pulled the songs from here, this would be on it. This, Sign of the
Mm.
Cross, Man on the Edge, and Blood on the World's Hands. These would be the songs that make it onto my X
Mm.
Factor Iron Maiden playlist from this.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
before
Yeah, yeah,
rounding
go
off, and just I have actually a quote here. I have this. I have a friend in the UK. He's known as Noggin. No one knows his real name,
ahead.
I think. So he's known as Noggin. And this guy, he is about our age, older than me. I think about your age or something. So this guy has seen Wolfsbane about 70. I think he wrote 72 times, and Maiden over 60 times. So a huge Wolfsbane fan, huge Maiden fan. He was also a huge fan of Bruce, following his solo career and going to. He's probably one of the people in the world that's seen the most Bruce Dickinson solo shows as well. Anyway, this guy lived. He is from the Birmingham area, and Wolfsbane was also like a local band from the Midlands, the Birmingham area. And I asked him, "What did you think back then?" Because I wanted some sort of perspective from a British fan, and I knew that he's a huge Wolfsbane fan. Uh, but I have also, through the years, come to understand that he isn't that much of a fan of Blaze in Iron Maiden. So we exchange messages back and forth, and I have to just to give you, the listener or viewer, a sort of picture of what was Blaze's magic in Wolfsbane and how it didn't work in Iron Maiden. Okay, this is his words. On Live Fast, Kathy, and Downfall, these are album titles he shortened down. Those albums, Blaze sings with a glint in his eye, with a smirk on his face. You can clearly hear that in his voice. Live, he was the same, but you could see his face. He was like a cheeky, chappy 10-year-old kid from next door. There were times when he could barely sing properly for smiling and laughing. Then he'd fuck up the words, and it would be funny, and we would all laugh together. It was part of what made Blaze Blaze. It was part of Wolfsbane's DNA. You can't do that in Maiden. And that what was he was doing. He was so out of his depth. He'd lose his place in the songs. He'd panic. His mind would go, and it's game over. Once you start to freeze on stage, You just can't get it back. Blaze was the wrong singer for Maiden, and Maiden was the wrong band for Blaze. And like I said in the introduction, Wolfsbane was this phenomena in the UK, but they hardly, as far as I know, I don't think they ever toured like Sweden back in like the late 80s or early 90s and so on. But I mean, again, that guy was the guy that Steve wanted for Maiden. And I mean, I have thought a lot about why doesn't I love this album? And since I'm a huge Maiden nerd, I've spent too much time actually trying to come up with what is not working for me with this album. And like we said, there are many fans that are way into the X Factor and think it's a great album. But I think we've touched upon most of the problems or the choices made for this album. It's the sound of the album, it's the weak guitars, it's the mix of Blaze's voice, it's Blaze being another type of singer, actually on many songs the wrong kind of singer for Iron Maiden. The songs are too samey. They start off the same way and they end the same way, which makes it hard to sort of get a direction in the album. And the performances as well. We talked about Blaze. We talked about Nico and his performances. That many times he just seems to be uninspired. But again, I think that, like I said before, if you like really salty food, if that's your thing, the X Factor might be the album for you. But I'm not into salty food, and the X Factor isn't really my favorite album. But in a weird way, I can sort of appreciate the X Factor more than Fear the Dark anyway, just because they really went for it. And I must respect that. I think it's very bold of them to bring in a new guy and just do what they did.
Yeah.
But then again, as we will discover now when we start to talk about the singles, other choices could have been made. They
Yeah.
wrote more songs than the songs that's on the album. And yeah. So shall we
Yeah.
continue with the singles?
Yeah.
So they put out Man on the Edge as the first single on the 25th of September 95. The B side for let me see here. They made, this is a UK picture disc. Can you see that?
Yep.
On this vinyl version, there is a song called I Live My Way. I Live My Way is supposedly the first song that the band ever wrote and maybe even recorded, but they for sure was the first song they wrote together. And before we talk about I Live My Way, I have to show you this. It's coming with the
Wow.
picture disc. I'm stepping back here. This poster it's huge.
Whoa.
If you are listening on the podcast.
That's like as big as you. What is? Oh, it's city. Okay. But wait,
So okay, I have it the wrong way. So it's the sleeve of the. It's
yeah.
absolutely enormous,
Wow. That came
and
with the
on
picture
the
disc. Wow.
that came with the picture disc, and it's a photo of the band with Eddie in the background as well that you can see here.
Wow.
So I Live My Way. What's your thought on that song while I'm holding this back together?
Yeah, I didn't really like it. Out of the three songs that the three original B-sides, this is my least favorite. I thought the intro was boring. I don't like the verse melody, except for the second half, the part, the I lived out my needs part. I think that was okay, but otherwise, I didn't really. It's not terrible, but I didn't really like it. I can see why maybe this one isn't. It's my least favorite out of these three.
Absolutely, it's not good.
Yeah.
It might even be an awful song, actually. I Live My Way, but as a curiosity, as a sort of a novelty, I think it's nice that they put it out since it's the first song they wrote together for the B side of a single. Go ahead, I'm pleased. I would like to hear it, of course, but I Live My Way is not at all album material. But on the other hand, as we will discover going through these different editions, this is a box set made to collect the album and the singles. It's also a UK one, so you could put your CD singles and the album in this one in the box. It came with a bunch of pictures with the band. I was have been lucky through the years and had all these sort of postcard sized pictures of the members of the band signed over the years,
Wow.
which is nice, of
Yeah.
course. As the B side for this one, there's a song called Judgment Day. And what do you think about Judgment Day, John?
Yeah. I like this one. I think the opening riff is great. I think the guitar solos are great. I like the energy on it. Yeah, I like this one. This should have been on the album. I think this is a good one. I think it's catchy. I like the energy on it and the riffs and stuff.
I think I read somewhere that they thought it was too much alike Man on the Edge or Be Quick or Be Dead or
Yeah, it
something like
reminds
that.
me of Be Quick or Be Dead a lot. That I do hear, and I could kind of see that it is kind of the same tempo, but I would have preferred too many fast songs than too many of these slow, boring ones.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
a plenty of slow, boring ones. Why did they think that was okay and not
yeah.
okay to have too many fast ones? They could have just spaced. I wouldn't have put this song right after Man on the Edge. I would have
No,
spaced it through the record, but
yeah. This would have been my opening track for side two of my
yeah,
shorter version of the X Factor,
yeah,
and I also think that the sleeve, the way that they present Eddie, is much better on the single than on the actual album.
yeah,
With the lighting is a bit the lighting is a
yeah,
bit different. It makes it more dark and mysterious and not so plastic,
yeah,
actually. But I think Judgment Day is a great song. It would definitely make my X Factor if I were the producer. Uh, um, cool thing about the show that I went to where Blaze was celebrating 30 years of the since the release, they did some of these B sides too, and they played Judgment Day,
wow,
which is really really cool. And finally, they made another edition, and yet again with another. This is also a UK CD single, and the exclusive track for this one is a song called "Justice of the Peace," and this song is made by Dave Murray, and it's the only Dave Murray music recorded throughout these sessions. So actually, if I were in the band, I would say that we must use Dave's song. And
yeah,
Justice of the Peace is a good song as well. So why isn't Justice of the Peace on the album? I have no idea, but I think this is a good one.
yeah. I really like this one. I like the energy. I think Blaze sounds really good on it. There's some nice riff changes that flow and work really well together. Is it just a Dave Murray writing credit? Just Dave?
And Steve writing the lyrics.
Okay. I was gonna say Steve had
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah. Of
his
course.
right something in there, right? Yeah, I would have put this one on. I mean, I could see again, it's another fast one, but still, they could have just spread them across the record the right way, and the record would have had a lot more energy to it, in my opinion. And I will take this over the slow, boring ones.
Yeah, good song. Again, let's move to the last single. Uh, this is the CD single for Lord of the Flies. It was released. If you look online, there are like varying release dates for this one. I don't, and this wasn't like easily available in stores in Sweden. There were a Dutch version, Holland. Uh, they look the same. It's the same songs and everything. This one that I'm showing you here is a Canadian CD single, and the B sides, or not B sides on the CD single, but the extra tracks for this CD single is the Who's song from '65, My Generation, and of course Steve gets to sort of do his thing, his John Entwistle
Mhm.
impersonation on this one. It's a pretty good version, I'd say, of My Generation. What do you think?
It's okay. It's most interesting for what you said, listening to Steve do those bass fills that John Entwistle does. That's
Yeah,
probably the most interesting part of it. But yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to listen to it on any kind of regular basis, but neither will I with the next one you're going to mention.
yeah, it's the Doctor Doctor, and I mean, for many Maiden fans, I mean, it's like what do you say, a dog whistle.
Yeah.
That when you hear Doctor Doctor, you're wherever you are in the world doing your, you will see, okay, is Iron Maiden getting up on stage now, somewhere near me or something?
Yeah.
Because of course, they've used the UFO version of the song Doctor Doctor as the song that they play before lights go down and they start to play. This version of Doctor Doctor is okay. It's not super great. Certainly not in comparison with other tracks that or covers or B sides that we've been listening to throughout the episodes. But in itself, Doctor Doctor is a good song, and they do a decent version of Doctor Doctor, recording it for like the extra track of Lord of the Flies. But yeah,
Yeah, it's they seem to try to musically stick pretty close to the original, like with the guitar lines and stuff like that, because it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
iconic. But yeah, am I going to listen to it again? No. But if you haven't heard it, it's worth giving it a listen. It's not bad. It's
It has a slow intro, so maybe they thought it suited the rest of the session.
yeah, exactly. But all right. Well, there you go. Did you comment on Doctor Doctor? I don't know. Do you have something that you want to say about Doctor Doctor?
No, I just think it's a good song, but this version is perhaps lacks a bit of something.
Yeah.
Perhaps it lacks that X factor to make it
Yeah.
work, pun intended. But you know me, I'm a huge fan of UFO and the and not only the Schenkers, I must say, but I've been listening to UFO and the Phenomena album from 1974 is a good one. So, and I mean, everyone knows that Steve is a huge
Yeah.
fan of UFO, of Pete Way. Like he said somewhere in an interview, I think I saw them that because back in the early 80s, Steve used to wear stripy
Yeah.
spandex trousers. So Steve was saying, like, the interviewer asked Steve something like, "So has this been UFO been an inspiration for you?" And he replies, "Both playing and posing."
Yeah.
Because the way that Pete Way is on stage is like that's Steve. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the first time I saw UFO live, and I mean Pete Way is perhaps even, or was he's sadly passed now, but I mean he was even more intense on stage than what Steve is even.
Yeah.
But you could see the influence. I mean, playing doing
Yeah.
the gun thing. That's
Uh-huh.
Pete
And he
Way,
and P Way played
100%.
a precision bass like for a certain period of time with
Yeah,
UFO. He's kind of more famous for that what is it, Thunderbird
Yeah,
But
Thunderbird
but
Gibson
there's
bass. Yeah,
videos on YouTube of him playing a precision. So you can, and he sort of has it, again, he looks like Steve. He sort of holds it at
yeah,
roughly the same area, he sort of plucks it the same way that Steve
yeah.
would. So yeah, you can definitely see how Pete Way was an influence on Steve.
So if we're talking about influences for the band over the years and what bands that sort of shaped Iron Maiden in a way, of course they should do a UFO cover.
Yeah.
But I would have gone with something else. I would
Yeah, they
have
should have went with something more
rolled with it,
obscure.
or yeah, something like that, or even Love to Love would have been sort of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's nice. UFO, Doctor Doctor, and Iron Maiden. It's like a marriage.
All right. Well, there you go. The X Factor.
Are we actually done now?
I think so. I think we've said it all on the X Factor. Hey, it's an album, like I said, when Iron Maiden fans are sitting around and having a beer. Your people's opinions on this vary pretty wildly, so it's kind of an interesting album to discuss with people and to kind of think about. It comes at an interesting time in heavy metal history, an interesting time for the band, and so yeah, there you go. There's our thoughts on the
I I,
X Factor.
I think that I think these days what sort of affects the opinions of people is that for a long time, very there were a lot of fans that were sort of, and especially when Bruce came back, it was like a thing to shit all over the
Yeah,
Blaze albums, and there were Blaze bashers, as they're called among the Maiden fans,
yeah,
uh, that doesn't like anything. It's like everything about those albums, like this one that we just talked about, and Virtual 11, which is the next one we'll do next year. Uh, they just don't think it's any good. It doesn't sound right. Everything is wrong
yeah.
about them. So
Oh,
for every reaction, there's for every action there's a reaction, and I think there are quite a few out there who claim to just love this album to bits and that Blaze is the best singer in the world and the best singer for Iron Maiden. I think just I suspect that there might be like a tiny hint of edge lords just
yeah,
being a bit provocative too. But I know for sure, and I can assure you, there are people who actually just love this album to bits. And like I said earlier, I could see easily that there, if you like this, if you like what they're doing on X Factor, you get a lot of what they're doing on X Factor. It's
yeah.
like it's all
True.
there. If you do like that, you get that. So of course, then the X Factor is the album for you. But some I think what you and me have been talking about here, John, is that the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah,
And I would even say that, and quite confidently so, that if we were to talk with the actual members of the band, they would, at least a few of them would probably agree with a lot of what we're saying here. But again, it all comes back to Steve Harris, the choices he made, the songs he wrote, and the songs that he put on the album. Like we talked about, some of these B-sides are great songs and should have been the album, and they would have changed the album. But that was not the decision that Steve made, unfortunately, if you ask me.
yeah. And their stock, at least in the States, had fallen quite a bit while we were talking. I looked at the venues that they played here in the US for the X Factor. And just two examples: Philadelphia, the Electric Factory, capacity 2,500. Hammerjacks in Baltimore, same capacity, 2,500. Go back to the World Slavery Tour, and I picked a place from there, Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, 20,000.
Mm,
So they went from 20,000 to 2,500. I mean, what is that? Like an 85% drop
mm,
in
mm.
attendance figures. I mean, so that
Yeah,
also sort of shapes the perception of the Blaze era that it
yeah,
just, at least here in the States, this is the band bottoming out. This
yeah,
is this is Tony Martin era Black Sabbath, although I love Tony Martin era Black Sabbath from a successful ticket selling side merchandise selling
Mm.
side in the States, this is the band bottoming out. This album and the
Mm.
next album are going to be them, hitting rock bottom in the
Yeah,
States. That is, as
yeah.
far as
And,
attendance,
and I
and
mean, I
that's
I
got to
also
weigh
talked
on
about,
people.
yeah, I also talked about that they played so small venues in Sweden,
Yeah.
even in Sweden, and and this might come out weird, but for a very selfish reason, I'm glad I got to see that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though I've been very close to the stage in a football stadium or huge indoor arena, but seeing them playing for 850 people is something else. I mean, it's very intense, it's very
Yeah.
upfront. And I mean, you couldn't tell by the band's performance that they were like, this is a this is a gig that's not important. This is a too small of a gig for us. No way. No, no, no. And I mean, we've talked about Steve doing extra gigs in between Maiden gigs while on tour, even to this day with British Lion. That guy just thrives on being on
Yeah.
a small stage and having like sweaty faces right in front of him. He sort of enjoys that. And on this tour, I got to see that. I've seen British Lion as well, very upfront and close. But to see Iron Maiden playing under circumstances just like that, for me, selfishly, yeah, I really enjoyed that. But commercially, of course, it wasn't what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Of
And
course
by the
not.
time we get to virtual 11, I'm looking now, they played 8 dates in the US. And one of the venues, New York, Roseland Ballroom, holds 3,000 people. So that is them just absolutely bottoming out. They can only play 8 dates in the US and they're basically playing large clubs.
Yeah.
And that's not even saying, I don't even know if they sold those out. I'm assuming that they were able to at least sell out a 3,000 capacity room, but at this point in their career, I really don't know. So yeah,
Mm.
unfortunately, the Blaze era is the band just bottoming out as far as attendance figures, record sales, and things like that. So that also sort of, and with time, people have come back to it, and it has developed its sort of following. It's just it is sort of this album that does have a kind of a cult following around it. So yeah, if you're out there, you haven't listened to the X Factor in a while, give it another listen and see where you stand with it.
Mm.
This is where we
Absolutely.
stand with it. We've stated our case for the history books.
Hey, now it's out there.
Yeah, do with it as you will.
Yeah.
All right, and in the meantime, if you can't get enough of Matthias and myself, like I mentioned earlier, you can watch the full video version of this on Layer the Alchemist YouTube channel. I apologize for having to stand up there at various points. I'm dealing with some back pain. Uh, Matthias has a band, Dead Cosmonaut. I'm pretty certain if you like Iron Maiden, you will like Dead Cosmonaut. You can find them on all the socials. You can find them on all the streaming networks. Matthias also did a video with his friend Henrik, who he mentioned earlier in this episode, called a YouTube channel that he has called Made in Stockholm, where they go around to all the venues in Stockholm that Iron Maiden has played. That's very interesting. Make sure you check that out. Will be links to all this in the description. Let's see. I mentioned my YouTube channel, Layer the Alchemist. I also have two other podcasts I do. One with author Martin Popoff, an AC/DC podcast called Kicked Into Teeth, an AC/DC podcast, and a Black Sabbath podcast I do with my buddy Darren called Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast. Those are available on all fine podcast networks. So plenty of stuff to keep you busy till our next episode. So till then, we'll see you out there somewhere in time.